Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We've got two things here. I'd like to, I know that the Board of Health has stayed to discuss transfer station contract, but if possible, I'd like to hit the fire engine contract first. Is that the only reason you're here, Bob?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we can just get that done, because I don't think that's gonna be a lot of talking. Do you have anything to present on the fire engine contract?
I don't, Chief has it.
Okay.
So, basically, we get the money at town meeting. So we started an engine committee back in September to start designing the specs and shopping around. The committee's finished their work and they recommended to me that we go with Pierce Manufacturing, which is the same brand we have. We have two Pierce engines now. They've worked through the specs, they've designed the truck, they've been meeting on a weekly basis since September. We met with 4 different manufacturers. We were looking for a sole source, which means from start to finish, the truck's made by the same company in the same building. So there's really about 4 major fire truck builders. We met with all 4. They narrowed it down to, they felt the Pierce was the best truck for the money, so we've worked with the manufacturer and the salesman, and we've gotten it to the price of $524. A few bucks under the 525, because we had the 500 at town meeting, the 25 from Mangovi. So to get the truck we want, that's gonna last, because we're looking for stainless steel, and Pierce offers some corrosion protection, galvanized frame rails and stuff like that. That's probably the best corrosion protection we can get. So that's really where we wanted to spend the money.
Okay. All right. Do you have any questions?
Nope.
Do you have any questions, Craig?
No, I've asked mine along the way.
I got the whole.
And you're
story.
comfortable also with what you're getting
Yeah, I
from the
think-
recommendation, that you don't have any questions, obviously, you
No,
wouldn't be here.
the committee's worked very diligently, and they beat the manufacturers up pretty good, so we're getting a very good truck. I think the town will be proud of it. I know the guys on the department will be proud of it. I think it'll serve the town well for 30 years.
Do you have a copy of the spec sheet that we could put online possibly? Is it shareable or is it not something that
It's
we're?
140 pages.
Oh.
If we decide to go with Pierce and sign the contract, they'll make a little,
Like
they
a
usually
summary.
make like a
Be
quick
nice to put
summary that
something
they
out
put
for
up
them to see
saying,
what-
congratulations, Barry, you bought. The basic spec is gonna be pretty similar to the truck we have now. It's pretty just a modernized version of what we have. It's a work truck, there's no frills to the truck. I mean, the money we're putting in the truck is in the corrosion protection, the stainless steel body, so we don't have the corrosion issues that, we have now. This stuff wasn't available back when we bought the truck last, in 1999, so.
Okay.
It's a little extra money that way, but I think it's gonna be money well spent.
Did you wind up with the work lights you wanted, or?
Yeah, we got some seam lights, the few little things that the truck we have now doesn't have, we were able to put into this one
Okay.
under the price we were looking for, so. I
Huge
said the
difference.
committee did a really good job about beating up all the manufacturers, and I think this will be
Working
a
with
truck.
them, working
Yeah,
with
I think this will be a truck everybody will be very proud of.
All right, good. Well, I guess,
I'd make a motion that we approve the purchase of the PS truck that the fire chief recommends. Second.
call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye. So thank you very much, Bob.
All right.
No, I
I'll
appreciate it.
Give them the good news, and if
You
you
got
want
it.
140 pages worth of exciting reading, I'll let you borrow it.
No, I appreciate it, but when you do get that summary, if you could get it
Yeah,
to Andrew, so
I
we
can-
could
I can
advertise
type
a
a
little
quick-
bit of, this is
quick
what we're
summary.
getting for the buck.
Yeah.
Even at the overview I saw before, the truck, the different views of the truck and the cab, the panels and stuff.
Yeah,
Just
once-
basic lengths and specs
It
like
takes
that.
it'll take about 8.5 months right now from when we sign the contract to the truck's delivered.
Okay.
So as we go through the process, we have a couple meetings where they'll actually give us some picture diagrams or live color diagrams of what it'll look like and stuff, so I'll share that.
Oh, all right,
as
that'd be
we-
great.
As we go through the process.
It's probably more than
Appreciate
we'll
it.
need right there. And all the specs, so.
So keep your eyes on Facebook, everybody. You get to see the progress. Next item on the agenda, I'd like to ask the Board of Health, if you don't mind coming on up. We'll discuss the renewal of the transfer station contract. For those that don't know, we have a current contract agreement with Solid Waste Solutions. It was built on annual renewal options that I believe is a joint both boards vote. I don't recall specifically. I know we entered it that way, but I couldn't recall the renewal side of it. And this is what it's about. We have a 6-month notification if we're gonna cancel it, and we actually have already passed that deadline. Working the feedback, I see. Do you have anything you guys want to say? Any thoughts?
No, I'm ready to sign. Go ahead with it.
All right. What are your gentlemen's thoughts?
You know mine, haven't changed.
Yeah. And you, Charlie?
Well, I think we're still waiting on information, so I think we almost needing more information. I think we have to go ahead and sign.
Okay. I do believe we weren't able to even get the committee together in time to put any, they didn't put the effort in. It wasn't that. They didn't have time to really get everything, and we had asked for more questions each time they brought something, so. I agree. I don't think we're at a position where we could really put proper information in front of us to change the original reason why we entered the contract in the first place. So I would make a move, I guess a motion to renew the contract for another year.
I'll make the motion that we renew the contract with the transfer station for 1 more year.
Okay. Call for a vote?
Aye.
Aye. Are you no or abstaining or?
I'm opposed.
Opposed.
Of course.
So I believe we got a 5-1 or a 3 and a 2-1, however we document that.
5-1.
That works. Well, thank you very much. We're still gonna try to continue with the updates on the transfer station study committee, see if they can get some more information like we were talking about of the town's potential growth at that site if we were to take it over, to understand the actual financial implications and how that would go over years, not just in 1 year.
The committee's done a good job so far, and if for us not to take it over,
They have based on the current operation.
that's right.
And what we had also asked was if we added this or this to the site, could you come back and let us know what that potential would be? And that's what we're waiting on.
But I just wanted that added in there, that at this time, there's no way we can take it over.
They basically formulated their decision on the fact that they saw there was no money in recycling. It wouldn't be profitable for
There is no
recycling.
money.
And that was the sole decision on not taking it over, but that was not,
But you still don't vote on it.
that was primarily not the concern. It was whether or not it produces revenue that would justify us taking it over and putting it under town control and produce excess revenue to, add money to our town coffers and therefore help reduce our tax base in town, which the sticker sales alone are $100,000 and the bag sales bring us up around $175,000. The operating cost for a full-time person is under $70,000. That leaves us $110,000 of wiggle room to do any startup costs we need to take it over as it is. That doesn't include bailers or bundlers or other towns or reconfiguring anything, just running it like it is. The numbers make sense and no one's done any effort to look into that. They've tried to look into reasons to stay away from it so far, and that's disappointing to me. Doesn't mean it'll work out that way in the long run or not, but if it was something we could take over and eventually lower the cost of the town, that's what I'm for. And if in the future we were running it and we saw the ability to change the site plan and redo the bylaw that says it's buried trash only, we can invite other towns in there and more trash bags, more sticker sales is
That's
higher
a
revenues.
question I do have for you
It's a
guys.
better revenue stream for the town.
Can you better explain the change of the siding that may be required if we just opened it up to more towns, but we still maintain the total limit at the site? Because my understanding is we're only using about 20% of what's already authorized. The siding is actually based on what towns can also use it, or just the total that goes through the site?
In the site assignment, it's open to Barre residents
For
only.
Barre
By
residents.
Mass DEP site assignment.
Okay. And the effort to do that is just sending in a request,
I don't
making.
know exactly what's involved,
Okay.
read through DEP to rewrite the site assignment.
That would be something I'm interested in, because even if Solid Waste Solutions stays there, I'd still like to know if that's something, because why not? You know, and if that means all of a sudden a lot more money's coming in because we actually start getting other towns buying the permits and the trash bags, it just helps us develop numbers to understand if it really is worth us taking it on, but it's easy to do when it's their risk for the first year or so and then find out if it. So I'm hoping I could understand, and maybe if we know what that is, we might be able to start taking those steps, and I don't know if it's something that could actually be accomplished by annual town meeting, to actually put before the town saying, would you like to open this up to other abutting towns? You know, still keep it tight, not the whole state, but, and then see where it goes from there. So if there's any way you guys could help us get that info to figure out the timeline of what that takes, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll figure out something, I'll have a chat on it.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you, Dana.
All right.
And thank you, Andy. I appreciate it. Thank you guys very much for coming.
Okay,
Appreciate it. See what we can do.
so we're in for another year.
Yes, we'll get whatever written up and sign is needed.
Okay.
Take care of that.
So I appreciate it, sir. Have yourselves a good one. Take care. All righty. All right. One of the things that I had asked to be on old business was just a discussion of a potential events committee or events coordinator. It's been brought up through a couple different avenues. One was through the development of the QEMP and the regional economic groups, I guess, depends on which subgroup you're in there. Whether it's shared services or what was the other group? But I think it was one of those two groups. Or just economic development, maybe that was the other
Might
one.
fell under economic development was where that discussion started.
Okay. The idea was, Hubbardston has somebody that actually, I think, is volunteering to organize their events centralized to the town, so the town can actually know private and town activities going on and try to start spreading the word, developing a calendar. One of the other things that came up when we were talking about all the towns being together was the idea of possibly having a regional events coordinator, so that potentially we don't overlap weekends where Hubbardston might be doing a big event and Barry's doing a big event. And if we know it's coming, we can alternate weekends so that we can have two big events that might help the region together, rather than splitting off either vendors that are going one event or another, or the people that actually want to go to each event. But that came up, and I just wanted to bring it up to see if it's something that we think, well, to add to it, I'm sorry. Charlie's brought up now for over a year, the 250-year anniversary that's coming in 2024. And if we actually do an events committee, then they actually are a committee that's sticking to it year after year after year, and hopefully by 2023 we have a plan. Because it's gonna take that, it's gonna take time to get it. We need to have a better plan actually before 2023 if we wanna get certain groups here to help with it, whether it's bands or other things, because they're gonna be booked. So, are we interested in trying to create this committee? Do we think it's get people from town interested, start applying. Anybody that's interested, you can start applying now and just identify it as events committee. It's probably gonna be something like a 7-member committee because events kind of sometimes need a lot of hands, a lot of networking, a lot of time on the phone. So, please present anything, whether it's via email or an actual committee application to the town administrator. We can see if that'll get started. In the meantime, we'll start working on a charge just to better understand the role. Primarily, it'd be more of an advisory committee, not a lot of decision-making when it comes to funds or anything at this moment. We may grow into that depending on how big it gets and how much effort it takes. And someone might be tasked with the concept of the coordinating, scheduling, maintaining a calendar, something like that, depending on how we set it up on our website or through Facebook, if we create a separate Facebook page just for the events. I don't think we're big enough where we need multiple Facebook pages, but it happens. So, just wanted to get it out there again. That's about it, but I think we're at the point we should probably start working on a draft of some type of committee like that. Maybe see if Hubbardson even has something written themselves and we can kind of build off it. I have nothing more on that. Does anybody else have any comments on that? Okay. New business. Vote on the approval of annual license renewals. I've signed them. We got a list here. I'll read them off real quick and then we can go through the questions. We have an entertainment license for the Colebrook RV Resort, motor vehicle license.
It's just under the app. Those are probably just under the applicant.
Faye Zukowski,
No, that's
12
probably-
Winter Street.
it was-
That's the garage down on
oh, okay.
Okay,
The name didn't come out.
Okay, it's somebody
it's a
else.
typo.
Good enough.
Sorry about that.
12 Winter Street anyway, motor vehicle license. Common victualler inholder license, Rebecca Hamill, Exchange Street. Common vic and inholder license for Barre Congregational Church, 30 Park. Common victualler inholder, Glenn Oravec, 2 Common Street. Same for Trevor Moore at 2 Summer Street. Same for Dominic Capolino, 90 Main Street. Same for Richard Henning, 149 Lockwood Road. Same for Steve Barrett, 572 Summer Street. Same for Peter Baker, 1230 Pleasant Street. Again, Peter Baker, 97 Lockwood Road. Same for Sarah Thong, 596 Summer Street. Motor vehicle license for George Riley, 26 Valley Road. Motor vehicle license for William Payne, 8/10 Broad Street. Common vic inholder license, Muhammad Mustafa, 6 Moulton Street. Common vic and inholder, Garang Patel. Sorry, I'll work on that if I got it wrong. 540 Vernon Ave. Common vic and inholder, Yan Fei Zhu, 57 Main Street. Common vic inholder, Janet Pierce, 221 Spring Hill Road. Common vic inholder, Carmine Gugliotti, 59 Allen Drive. Common vic inholder, Carissa Hartman Wozniak, 1026, 1030 Old Dana Road. Common vic inholder, Joseph Perrine, 7 West Street. Common vic inholder license, Alicia Strunk, 531 Summer Street. Common vic inholder license, Kevin Cooley, 450 Southbury Road. Common vic inholder license, Molly Dubois. Oh, I got it. Sweet. 500 C West Street. Automatic amusement license, Joe Martone, 377, 395 Stetson Road. Common vic inholder license, Joe Martone, 377, 395 Stetson Road. Do I have a motion on those?
motion to approve the licenses as you read them.
I'll second.
These are all good in tax standing?
Yes. Yeah.
And, any other comments? Call for vote?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Marijuana bylaw review committee appointments. We got a list of either emails or applications of people that are interested in being on this. The only thing I would bring up before we even go through the list of people is, and I was reminded of it because I had to do my biannual conflict of interest training again, is this technically means you're a municipal employee appointed, you're just doing it unpaid. Which means depending on your role with any private may affect your ability to come back before the town on the same subject matter, representing a company or a group or even your own special interests, unless certain disclosures are provided or certain exemptions are made. Understanding that most of the people involved or that applied actually may or may not be closely connected to either a private investment or a private group that has certain opinions on the subject matter. I suggest at a minimum, when we create this, we make sure to identify them as special municipal employees, because it does give a little bit more latitude with that. But to do that, we as a board would have to make that vote. So I don't know if we'd want to do that and then go through the group and then decide who we want. Because it just means that we're getting input from both sides, and sometimes that means you do want some input from those that might actually be on the other side of the table when they actually come to us and say, I would like to do this in town. It's a marijuana bylaw, it's marijuana businesses. There may be people affiliated or closely related to those that are doing it. And I want to make sure that if we want some of them on this to provide a, what I would consider a balanced review, that we give them the opportunity to be a part of it. But it means they just need to do the full disclosure before they come back before any town board about this type of subject matter, just saying that this is my connection and this is what I did for the town related to the subject matter. That's my understanding. I don't know if you know it any differently, Andrew, but I think that allows them to do that. So I didn't want to bring it up, offer people, and then realize people feel like they can't. So do we want to make a motion that members of this committee would be considered special municipal employees?
I'd like to hear Andrew's thoughts on that before we do that.
Personally, I don't feel I have enough information relative to the special municipal employees statute to give a strong opinion. If you would like to do it, you know, pending me do a little bit more research on it or wait for the next meeting, just wasn't prepared to answer in that context, so. If you don't mind, I'd like to do a little bit more research on the special municipal employee designate.
Okay.
That's sort of how I feel, is I'd like to look a little more closely at the impact of doing that, because we don't typically do that with the search committee for something. Granted, it's for the zoning bylaw issue. It's not binding. They don't have any real power other than giving us advice, and I don't know as we need to take that step, so I want to see if there's any other impacts or implications before we do it, that's all.
Yes, sir.
if in fact that concept floats, does a municipal employee, whether it's an ad hoc position or whatever, receive pay?
It doesn't matter if they receive pay or not. The idea is if you're appointed or elected, you fall under the conflict of interest law. And in that, if you're doing any work for the municipality that addresses specific subjects, such as developing a bylaw, and then you want to come back before the town later, whether it's to get a marijuana license or do a host community agreement, or things that fall under the regulation of that bylaw, it can be perceived that your role made it so that bylaw benefited you for some potential future financial gain. And right now, that law is written based on perception, not intent or desire or anything like that. But when you identify them under a special municipal, as well as look at another exemption, under exemption 20, I forget what it is, you can grant someone that exemption knowing that the reason you brought them in is because you just wanted their input, not because they're a voting member making a decision for the town. So they're providing potentially a counter argument to someone else in town depending on a specific regulation that's being proposed. These could be opposing opinions, but for us, it's nice to hear both opinions. So with that, I think it's good to give them the option to participate and speak their voice and not feel like they're losing a potential future gain that they think is something they've already been working on. Because otherwise, how do you really get that voice in this particular request? Because we made a special request for a committee to give additional voice to this, because the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board have been working together and independently on two different bylaws, the licensing one and the zoning one. And I think the two boards kind of have a little differing opinion on some of the things that were brought up and what parts of the town are talking to who. Most people, you know, you kind of find that person you like and that's the one you always talk to. Well, sometimes that means an individual isn't hearing both sides from the town. So I might not be hearing both sides as thoroughly because I'm usually hearing it from maybe 3 or 4 people. And maybe they have one direction they want to go. We wanted to bring in this type of committee and see if we can actually try to find people from different sides who have already expressed having different sides and see if they could come together with some thoughts and then present to us as their own group what the group thinks is fair. So, but doing that, I don't want to take away those potential people that think that maybe business is what they're trying to do and this affects their life, but we need to know why they think what they think. And so I just don't want to get them caught up and feel like they can't participate. It works on Q Drug too. I mean, if I know Neeker's on the list, but if she came in representing Q Drug, then she couldn't come before the town again representing Q Drug on this matter unless she was given certain, because it's the perception. It can be, you can't be part of the development of the bylaw and then later come against the bylaw, or, you know, she really couldn't represent Q Drug to say this bylaw needs to be revised in the future because she was part of the original. So she couldn't be what she's traditionally been, which is the voice of that group when it comes to our town and our bylaw development, politics, and even just organizing things for the school system. So I wouldn't want her to feel like she's walking a line she doesn't need to walk. So that's why I brought it up. In my opinion, if anything, all it does is protect them, but it doesn't hurt the town in any way by identifying them as special municipal employees.
Yeah, there are a couple of different sections of municipal or special municipal employees that the Ethics Commission identifies. It might be worth it to just give them a phone call, give them the situation, ask them exactly what section that would pertain to. So.
And I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I just think if we identify them as that, we're not hurting the town in any way. It's, like Greg said, the Board of Selectmen and the planning board will take whatever they say and do whatever they want with it. So it's just an advice, so I don't see where the town would say, I got hurt by that.
No, I look at it sort of the other way. I think that it's more likely if we make them a special municipal employee, that's gonna restrict them from having input on this in the future. Whereas if they're just an advisory appointed committee, that they should still be free to, you know, speak on either side of it in the future. I think once we appoint them to, as a town employee, that's gonna change.
They're
It's
appointed
gonna-
just by be putting on this. We are appointing them to this special committee. They are a subcommittee to the Board of Selectmen.
Committee's
By
different.
law.
Committee's different than an employee.
No, it's an appointed position.
Well,
And that's how they identify it. Any and all appointed or elected municipal
all the more reason
positions.
to get a little more input. We can put it off 2 weeks if it's all right with you, and vote on it in 2 weeks. Doesn't stop us from appointing members to the board and deciding on the designation. We can change that designation in the future, easy enough. I wouldn't want to slow down the appointment of the board.
Do we have
for
a
that.
number of people we think we would like to have on it? Just a second.
There are 8 so far that I'm just going through and penning some notes on them. Trying to get an idea of where they're coming from and why they're interested. Some say, some they don't. And, you know, fact is that Mr. Ryan Doley's recommended 4 people for this board, and there's a 5th that's applied to the 8 that have worked with Dean.
Well, Dean, just so everybody
So,
knows,
but-
Dean did
but-
also suggest Neeker.
But yeah.
So it's not like he was suggesting a
But I-
one-sided,
And Kathy?
And I
And
wanna say,
Kathy
I was
in
gonna
it,
say,
yes.
within those recommendations, we do have Kathy, which I would assume is very neutral on this, and Nika, which we know is probably opposed to marijuana. I think Catherine Triflo is obviously on the side of the facility. I don't know about Chris, but Chris is a local business owner, and I think that's a great choice to have on there. But having some pro and some con is gonna make this work, I think, I hope. So,
so of
just noting
those,
that he's asked for those 4, but it doesn't, I don't think it, I think he's recommended a balanced group of people, not a prejudicial group, is my point.
your thoughts, Charlie?
Well, I was wondering if we wanted to talk to these folks before we actually did the appointment. I don't know everybody that's,
I was gonna ask of the people that applied, I know some of them are in the crowd, so I'd like to see who in the crowd were those that applied, if you could just raise your hand. Okay, we've got at least 2, all right. I'm not familiar with Rebecca LaVenture. I'm not familiar with Ralph?
Betting
That's
that's
you?
Ralph.
Okay.
Hillary Strickland, I don't know.
That's me.
Okay,
That's by Joe.
okay. And so Rebecca, I don't. Tom, I do. Kathy, I do. Chris, I do. Nika, we do. Yeah, so it's really just 3, Hillary, Ralph, and Rebecca that I'm not familiar with.
You have, well, Ralph's here, Hillary's here, if you're interested, you could see. And then I don't know if between
like to
them and the
invite them up?
people you do know, if you have thoughts
yeah,
and.
I don't.
Would you like to invite them
I
up?
can think of some that, you know, just knowing them as individuals, how they, what they stand for and stuff, I have no problem, but there, some like, you know, like Hillary, don't think we've ever spoken before, have we?
Quite a few times, actually.
Okay, well, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
I've come in actually for special permits for PTO even.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we invite them up, Matt, and talk to them? Is that all right with you?
Please come on up. Yes, Sam.
Well, before we start interviewing everybody, is that I'm speaking from the point of the fact that we're establishing a committee for groups that we've already asked to make decisions for us, the planning board. And now this committee is gonna cause to stall the decisions of business owners. I'm coming from the position of an outside business person. looking at Barre and say, well, I might like to open up whatever I want to open up here in Barre. How welcome is the town of Barre to opening, for instance, a marijuana place, or maybe not a marijuana, another kind of a place? And from my perspective, just seeing what's happening, it seems like the town is dragging their feet to make a decision. And sometimes business owners, when they see towns dragging their feet, they shy away from those towns. And I would hate to have this marijuana issue to be in such a situation as the solar issue is now, because we have a lot of individual solar owners, but we don't have any town-wide solar owner. And we could have, if we played our game correctly, so.
It's not about solar,
No,
and
no,
I
I
understand
know
your
that.
point.
I know, what I'm saying is that this committee is causing to drag on a final decision, and a lot of business owners who may be thinking of Barre may say, Barre never can make up their mind, I'm gonna go someplace else. And then in 5 years down the road, the selectmen may say to themselves, or to the people, that we should have made a decision sooner, because we dragged our feet and we threw away a lot of possibilities. And the town of Barre doesn't have too many possibilities. We lost $500,000 a year.
Your point
from
is
the
made.
town.
Now-
So I just want to bring it to that attention, that's all. If you folks think that I'm not speaking correctly,
Sam, can I cut you off?
Please.
That's been plenty for input.
No, I got you.
I get your opinion, and I agree. The town is dragging its feet on this.
Thank you.
However, this
Thank you.
board and the planning board, zoning board, both brought bylaws to the town meeting floor with the town, not us, the actual town tabled them. So we're doing the best we can to come forward with something different, and the town didn't seem to want to listen to the ideas we brought forward. So we're trying to ask townspeople to come in and join and give their opinion in this, to try to find something different that we can do to modify it so the town will accept this. So to move forward as quickly and expeditiously as we can, we've invited townspeople to have their input. And hopefully that the zoning board and this board will listen to their input and come up with something the town will be glad to move forward with. But we have tried. It has been rejected by the town, not by the leaders of the town here. I appreciate the input. I think you made a good point. And to that end, I'd love to have our guests sit and talk.
thank you.
Real quick, Mitch.
Should there be a recusal here, the people that suggested?
Hi, Greg O'Sullivan, sorry about that.
Should
Greg
there be a
O'Sullivan.
recusal by some of the people that were commented on, 8 people, should there be recusal for people that suggested the people? Because of the-
We followed up, just so you know, for anybody that was suggested by another person, we went to the person that was suggested and directly requested, and they followed up saying, yes, we are interested. So there was no third-party recommendation that didn't, am I misunderstanding your question?
Sometimes the best way to get committees is to ask people to join.
What?
Sometimes the best way to get a committee is to ask people to join. If you're looking for certain talents or opinions or skills that someone has, you might want to ask them if they would consider joining a committee, because they may have no desire to be involved until you would suggest it, and then they're willing to fill the position for you. And Dean has suggested people because of their opinions and what they bring to the table in the discussion.
Is
That-
he not the number one person about the?
And
Well,
Nika
let's
is the
just
number one against it,
clarify.
I'd say, and that's one of his recommendations.
But Nika didn't suggest, she suggested herself, but she didn't.
Mr. Iandoli also suggested Nika as one of the
Actually,
four
just to
candidates.
clarify, all he did with his suggestion is start the conversation. And we had asked Andrew just to reach out to the people he suggested to see if they're interested. And then we also got 4 more applicants via email separately. So we got a pool of 8 people. I think we're looking to have at least 5 people on this board. So all he did was just initiate the conversation. We didn't go after those people because Dean suggested them. Outside of the fact that we thought if Dean suggested them, it's because he thought they might be interested in participating, not just because he thought they would be good people. So he presented what he thought would be 4 people, 2 from each side, at least when you look at discussions that have happened at annual and special town meetings and the voices that have been spoken. And we said, that's great, Dean. And Andrew, could you reach out to see if they're actually interested? And then we got the other 4 applicants, and we're going through all 8 of them. We're not taking anybody off just because it was recommended by someone to see if they're interested.
You're the
So,
chairman, you're.
I'm just explaining, that's how it went, so it wasn't like,
Asking the question, you're making the decision.
If the committee comes up,
no, it's okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood your question. And what you were just, if I understood your question right, you're saying is, if 4 were recommended by Dean, do we take them off the table because Dean was the one that recommended them, because he has a financial interest in this industry? Is that what you're asking?
One recusal, not the people that he suggested, one recusal of the person that suggested to be.
Meaning Dean's not allowed to be on it? Is that what you mean by recusal? Maybe I'm misunderstanding it.
Isn't it his business?
he's not on the list.
He,
I know he's not on, but isn't it his business, isn't it, that we're working on through all this
No.
marijuana stuff?
His business is done.
well, no, it's not, because the
Well-
marijuana licensing bylaw is still something he would have to walk through, so.
But, yeah.
But the point is, it is his business, but all he did was speak up. He has no determination, judgment, ability to make decisions on this. He just, as part of conversation, said, hey, I think this might work. Just to get it going. So we reached out to the people he recommended. All 4 of them said, I'd be interested. And then we waited and we got 4 more applicants, so we're just looking at the 8 people, no matter what Dean said, and we're gonna see what we think is the best way to fill out this board.
And you feel we need this committee?
I'm hoping this committee can present something, because the last 2 times we've gone before the town, the very first thing that happens is someone calls out either a conflict in the bylaw, where at one point we say one thing and another point we say something different, or they bring up something that sounds legitimate, like, yeah, that does seem like you're asking too much from a business that you wouldn't ask from any other business. And there's a very fine line there, because the state has at least said you should be treating it very similar to alcohol. And some of the things that we were gonna ask a marijuana business were much more extreme than what you ask for anybody with a package store. So when that happened, we were like, that makes sense, we gotta think about it. But we realized maybe it's better to get people off the board to take a look at it, and even if it's a typo markup saying, you got a conflict here, you got this here, you got this here, and they kind of represent it rewritten so it looks clean and the conflicts are gone. It might just help us, because both boards have been buried in it, and I think we're getting to the point where we're kind of looking past things, saying, I've already read that, or I'm comfortable with it, I get the gist of it, but I'm missing the actual grammar. So I'm reading past it, and then I miss the typo, or I miss the thing that's, so that's why bringing in another group, almost just a third party, take a look at it, tell us what you think, will give us something to then go and finalize
I
it.
think it's a good time.
This
to
is
clarify.
not something that we're gonna ask them to provide something in May. We need something earlier than that, so we can then do something. Because truthfully, I want final drafts for this warrant by June 1st. Like, this is what's going on the warrant. I don't want it a week before or 2 weeks before, because we need time to print it, we need time to properly publicly announce it and give people a chance to read it before coming to the meeting. So I'm just explaining,
I understand all that, but are you not overriding the planning board who originally had the
Can I?
job?
no, the planning board can ignore the whole thing. We're just offering it.
That's what I wanna
We
clarify.
wanted it, we're asking it, we're gonna do our best to see if they provide something that tells us, you know what? We could revise the licensing bylaw, we could fix this, like when they brought up the whole, you have to sign up with the police department, and anytime they want, let them come in at any time without notice, and always have access to the cameras without notice or warrant. That's way beyond acceptable privacy. I mean, that is not living in a democracy. That's as simple as that. Say what you want, but that's not giving people the right where you have to have a warrant for search and seizure or probable cause. The way we wrote that, they had no probable cause to come in and look behind the back door. And I don't think that's legally right. So when that got brought up and I saw that, I was like, you know, that makes sense. Not only does it make sense, it would have prevented a potential lawsuit had we done that. Because even though we wrote it in there, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're legally allowed to. It just means someone overlooked it until they brought it to court. And then we all get in trouble for it. So that's why, again, I'm saying a different group looking at it from their side of the fence, someone coming before the town that says, hey, I would like to do this type of business, might be able to provide some input on how they perceive it and how they would see it, saying, this actually might create legal issues for the town more than the protections you think you're getting with the restrictions or the rules or the regs you're putting into it. It's just another voice is all it is. None of us are held to anything they say. But I appreciate people coming up, because when we went to the annual town meeting and special town meeting and some of these things were brought up, some of it, it's like, well, maybe shame on us because we didn't advertise it well enough to give people a chance to read it, because we didn't get it done in time for people to read it and then present in, so we could revise it again. Because we kind of did get through that marijuana licensing bylaw pretty quick. We didn't have as many renditions of that and public input, so that's what this is. And don't get me wrong, I'm asking all 5 people to not just, you know, talk to other people too. You know, they're the committee, but just like us, we're a board, but we can't act without hearing from you guys. So anybody that we're gonna put on this is what we're looking for, is more voice, more opinion, so we can get a different view.
I'm with Mr. Goldfried when he spoke up and he said, of the 5,000 people, the 3,000 that can vote, we have 115 people that can make a decision here tonight for the whole town forever.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, we are.
But
And
we
that-
didn't, because we didn't agree.
And if the
It
other.
either got tabled or failed to pass.
6 months down and now you are it.
If the other 2,750 people.
No, it's gonna go before the town again.
37 don't wanna come vote, we can't change that. Well, the ones that do are trying to do something, but let's be clear, this committee isn't to rewrite the bylaws. They're to review the bylaws and make
No.
recommendations for changes to the bylaws. That's what they're doing. They're not gonna rewrite them and just start something new. They're not gonna just say we want a pot shop in every corner or we can't have it. They're trying to help see how to ease them up, make them simpler, whatever they think. But they're gonna review what's been written and make recommended changes. I mean, we've looked at it and we see the same thing and we miss it, you know? We miss something that someone else picks up. You can write your own speech and have a typo. You can write TO instead of TWO. And it still says to, but it means something different. And something as simple as that, just reviewing it. And that's what they're gonna do, is review it and see how it strikes them and recommend changes. That's just asking for help's what it is.
Obviously, at least the Board of Selectmen on the marijuana licensing, but we missed some things, because when we
Yep.
stood up, it was pretty obvious. They called out some things that all 3 of us sat there and said, that kind of makes sense, we should think about this.
I have no intention of ever
So,
inspecting.
there's
this.
nothing wrong with getting some input from other people and saying, hey, do you think we can make this better? And that's what we're looking to do. That's, just a second, Dennis, do you still have something, Claire?
Yeah, I just wondered if you had given the committee a charge or a purpose. Did you write one out?
We haven't gotten it written up yet.
Okay.
It was,
I didn't know
we
if you
brought
had
the whole
done
thing
that.
up running right into the holidays.
Yes.
So the idea was get the applicant names out, or requests for applicants, and we're trying to get it so that we don't have this be an issue where any comments they want to provide are so late that the 2 boards don't have a chance to actually think about it and then revise anything if they so choose going into the annual town meeting.
Like the
So we were
transfer
just kind of expediting it, but a final draft will be approved by us probably
So
by
you-
the end of the month.
Are you giving them the purpose of the committee, like a charge?
Yes.
Telling them what to,
They will definitely have that. Yes. There will be a written charge explaining the purpose. Yes. And just like everything else, the standard open meeting law, et cetera, will also come into play. So, that's my intent.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm sorry. realized at that point I was speaking more for a board that hadn't voted on it, so that wouldn't have been fair. Do you still have something, Dennis?
Claire asked my question.
Right
Okay.
behind Ralph, we had a question. Probably can't.
Yes, sir.
Very briefly, of your current candidates, are any of them already public employees? And if the answer is yes, does that potentially create some conflict of interest? I'm not saying it does, I'm just wondering.
I don't believe so.
Kathy kinda is, again, because she's on the Transfer Station Study Committee. That's another one where I think if we just identify it as special, she can be on more than one. That's the only one I know of, though, Kathy Inman being the one that potentially, and I would recommend, that's another reason why I'm recommending this special municipal thing, because I don't think it hurts the town in any way, but it actually protects the members that are willing to step up and hopefully participate and help us out. All right, that's enough of that. We'll get back to that, but we just asked these two to come up and do an interview, and we haven't talked to them yet. So Ralph, if you could start. Hello, Ralph. Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys.
So I guess if you could just explain a little bit about your interest, why you're interested.
It's really interesting coming to the town meetings that I've been coming to and hearing the different opinions. I've done a lot of research about drugs. I've lived in this town since I was 8 years old. I am the president and CEO of Rockworks here in Barre. We have hired hundreds of kids, young adults, around Barre. We went through a serious drug problem at one point in time. And I worked with Dr. Steve Martin and developed a program for my team to deal with my guys who are hooked on opiates. So having anything to do with drugs coming into town, it really interests me, if you will. I've done a lot of research into cannabis. I've attended the Northeastern Institute of Cannabis in Quincy.
Okay.
I did 12 classes there. They teach about the science behind it, the history of it, why it got prohibited. So I know a lot about it. I'd like to be able to do my civic duty, and seeing this come about, I felt like this was my opportunity to get some help for the town, be able to put my name on something in the town.
Okay.
I don't have any questions.
How do you feel about marijuana being approved in town?
So, I think it should come into town, but I think it needs to come into town the right way. Like, I see a lot of benefits to cannabis, but I also don't think everybody should just, it's not the miracle that everyone thinks it is. And like, I don't believe in having places like bars in town where you go smoke weed. You know, I don't think we do anything like that. There is a responsible, right way to do this, and I think I can help get Barre there.
Okay. Hillary. And your reason for wanting to be on this board? Committee?
Actually was the one who stood up at the special meeting and suggested this.
Yes, I do remember.
Part of that was because I see a lot of arguing going on, and I don't like it. I live in town. I'm raising 4 children in town. I'm Ruggles Lane PTO president. So I'm really vested in this town already. I really want stuff to come into town and the town to be progressive, not just for my own longevity in this town and seeing a town that survives, but I want my children to want to be near me when they get older, and I think this is something that's coming, regardless of if we do or don't have it right in Barre. Obviously, it's still coming to Barre. I want it to come in the right way. I want it to be safe for our children and safe for adults, and still worthwhile for us. And I'm really sick of the fighting, honestly. So that was why I stepped forward and made the suggestion. And when you put a call out for people, I definitely feel like people need to step up, and I can do that, so.
Thank you. Either of you have more questions?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We'll now go through the list and figure out what we can do. Are there any here that you don't know that didn't show up?
Rebecca.
Okay.
Laura, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Shouldn't you have had the charge done first before you go to appoint people? Because these people don't know what they're getting involved with. Is that correct?
No,
You have
actually, I
a
think
charge.
everybody knows exactly what they're getting involved
No,
with.
they don't, because you don't have a charge. So how can they know what you're asking them to do? You don't. You should have a
Because we're
charge first,
verbally asking them.
But did you explain to anybody that's applied here what the charge is that's being asked of you?
Generically, we did. We talked about, and just a minute ago, I talked about hoping to get their input on their advice, reviewing the bylaws, and making suggestions for how we might better them or alter them.
Any committee
And we haven't written the specific charge to those exacts, but we wanted to get people in sooner rather than later, because as you recall, we just had the transfer station committee come up. We got that committee formed with very short notice and insufficient time to do any research to produce a result when we needed it. And we're trying to get this going as soon as possible. You know, because they volunteered when you can appoint them, if they don't like it, they can certainly step down and we can appoint new people.
Any committee I've ever been appointed to, I waited until the charge was formed, then put my name in the hat. I always thought that's how it was done.
Normally, that is how it's done, Dennis, but what we have here is we had the special town meeting December 11th. We had a Board of Selectmen meeting a week later, where at the special town meeting, someone from town, Hillary, suggested this might be a good way to move forward. So at that next meeting on the 17th, we agreed that we would do it, but we also knew there was a timeline for them to be able to accomplish anything and then pass it off to either board, so those boards could then take it and work through their own draft process, so we can have final bylaws from each board by June 1st. We needed to get the request for those that would be interested out while we drafted and tried to create this. So by the end of the month, everything's together and they're taken off. Had we waited till 2 weeks from now, before we even asked, we would have been a month behind schedule and taken 30 days out of our ability to provide timely information for both boards to review. So that's why we took the path we did, because we knew there was a timeline. This isn't the first time we did it. Actually, transfer station study committee. We didn't even have that charge ready by the time we asked for people to be on it. But nobody acted on it until the charge was written, approved, and everybody got a copy of the charge. So it's more about, we can come up with a charge all we want, but if it ends up nobody's interested, why'd we waste our time?
Because the charge gives the people the information of what you're looking for from them. You can't just throw a group of people together and expect them to come up with something without you having a parameter for them to be guided by, and that's what the charge is. You're asking them to do something. What are you asking of them?
All right, here's how it went. Emails went out to people.
No, I know all of that.
But did you read it? I was gonna read you the sentence that gave them the initial understanding at a bigger, if you're not interested, that's fine. I just wanted to give you that option. The first sentence is, as you may know, the town of Barre of Selectmen have established a marijuana advisory committee to assist with the establishment of zoning and general bylaws related to medical and recreational marijuana uses. And then with this one, this was the initial email that went out to the four that Dean suggested, and it just said, We're just reaching out, are you interested in being on a committee like that? So they weren't asked just based on title. There was at least some type of description in how they might be participating. But they knew the charge wasn't made yet, but they were offering it because they understood that once the charge is developed, they could work within the parameters we're asking. What I would suggest right now is,
Claire has a question.
just a second. Just
Is this an appropriate time to work on the charge tonight?
No, it's four bullets. Open meeting law, conflict of interest. Number 3 is review both bylaws presented at the December 11, 2018 special town meeting, zoning and licensing. 4, mark up and provide comments as potential recommendations to revise those in a manner that would assist the town in passing and providing clear, protective bylaws for the town. It would be that simple. It's 4 sentences. I don't know what else we're at. It's just read them, mark them up, give us some comments, back it up so we understand why you're suggesting to do that. And it's not do it in a month. Again, I'm thinking if we can give them to the end of March, it gives them a chance to have, they can work together back and forth, talk to their neighbors, get some input, and then they come to us. Maybe if we can give them a legitimate chance to get a head start by the end of January, then the end of February, they come in and we have a little talk back and forth. They might have questions of us, we might have questions of them. Then they go back to the table, they come back a month later. Now starting March 30th, you've got April and May for each of our boards. You've got 4 meetings to take what you've already done and just, this is where we're gonna end up.
You might make special notes too, that we encourage him to talk to other people in town and get input. And remind them that per state law, we must allow these
Allow what?
businesses, the marijuana businesses per state law.
No.
This is not something we can disallow, so you have.
Well,
to-
actually, we can, because we don't have to answer anybody's request for a host community agreement. So the strongest power this town has against this is just this Board of Selectmen. We can say no to anybody that walks in that door, and we don't need to justify it.
I believe that was a part that was explicitly against state laws. The Board of Selectmen could not stop marijuana from a town if the town voted for it.
Actually, we can't make laws to do that, but we can refuse every host community agreement because it's required to have one to get your state license. And that's just a negotiated contract. The state cannot say,
Splitting hairs.
why didn't you agree to that contract? We're just gonna say, because of this, done. There's nothing in the law right now that means we have to come to an agreement with someone that comes to the table.
Fair enough.
So, I mean, when it comes to people saying what's protecting the town, well, right now, what's protecting the town is your Board of Selectmen.
It's just us, I understand that as well, but obviously, the intent to comply with the state rules and what they wanted in the elections is that these will exist in town in some fashion at some point in town. And so I want the committee to understand that this is really an attempt to find a way to make it work, specifically, not just to make a recommendation against or for, but the special note,
Right.
that you're really, your objective is to try to find a make a way for this to work. So you're gonna hear from both sides of the argument. It's not about, you know, shutting it down or supporting it. And just supporting it doesn't make it work. We know that. And then that's the.
There's definitely a
difference.
balance, and I agree with that.
So just some note in the charge about that, some instruction that says that, you know, your objective here is to try to find a way to make this work better. Because obviously the current bylaws have made objections from both sides of the aisle on it. Otherwise, your 4 bullet points, of course, I think are the obvious ones we've discussed.
All right,
We could have
so,
that typed up for next meeting, vote on it in a proper form.
I will just put it out here, the notes I have right now is open meeting. Item 1, just open meeting laws. Item 2, state conflict of interest laws. Item 3, review both bylaws presented at the December 11 STM, zoning and licensing. Item 4, mark up and provide comments to revise, fix, clear up typos, whatever. Number 5, encourage town outreach for input. In other words, each member, please do talk to your neighbors. Number 6, make the bylaws more efficient for both town boards and potential developers. That was one of my bigger concerns was I thought we were I thought that the process of the host community agreement, which is mandated by the state, and then following that up with a special permit granting authority through the zoning bylaw, was forcing a developer to go through 2 separate subjective processes where it could all be addressed in one. And so when I went to the planning board after the last annual town meeting and said, could we work together, and we suggested bringing the planning board in to the host community agreement process with the Board of Selectmen, I thought we could address it all there and not have to go through a special permit granting authority process, because their voice could be heard at the host community agreement and their site concerns could be brought up then. As we move forward, I did go back to the planning board chairman and mention that I could see a role for a special permit granting authority, but it would primarily be reviewing plans and documents to ensure that the host community agreement items were incorporated and properly brought into it, because it's not something that traditionally falls into a building inspector to worry about a host community agreement. They look at all the bylaws and all that. So I said, okay, you know what? You still have a role, but it's not to go back and then add more subjective potential. And so I thought we could make it more efficient for both sides. One and done, you get it right. And then as long as they do what we all agreed on, the town and the developer are just moving forward on the agreement that was made. That's not how it got presented. And as I said, it's just in a disagreement. It doesn't mean I'm right or I'm wrong. It was just, that's not how it worked. So I thought having another group come in and look at this would be, so that's what I think would be the charge, is primarily review it, provide comment, and let us know what you think. Similar to some of the comments we actually heard at the special town meeting that, you know, had we thought about it better, given ourselves more time, maybe we could have gotten those comments prior to the meeting and then actually had a law that we could have just voted on. But it didn't work out that way. So we get one more shot at it. So why not bring someone else in? Because the planning board's been working on it for 1.5 years. The Board of Selectmen's been working on it for 1 year. And we haven't been able to present one that passed yet. So what's wrong with bringing in another opinion? That's all it was about. So do we want to go through the names, make some votes, further discussion?
I have no problem with any of the names, but in an attempt to appease Dennis's concerns, which other people may have the same concerns, I see no harm in putting off the official appointment to our next meeting when we can have the charge ready and read them the charge and then accept their,
Just take that for notes.
If you want, I can reach out to the remaining members and ask them to address it.
and we can see if they want to be here at that meeting and actually appoint them in person in 2 weeks, invite them all back, read the charge, and then appoint those that still wish to be on the committee all at once in 2 weeks.
And I can address your question as far as the Ethics Commission.
And the other question,
This question
item I
was
would have
with-
put
right.
there is timelines. I do think that,
Right, well, and it
get
gives
them
us time to-
started February 1st. Our first meeting in March, they do a quick little visit with us, we do a little back, and then we say, okay, go back and do whatever you're gonna do on it. And then, first meeting in April, hopefully they say, this is what we got for you.
So-
And then we make sure the planning board is aware of when those are occurring. You can attend any one of our meetings as a planning board, so that they can get that first meeting in March. They can get some input back and forth,
Do you want
if
to
they're
draft the
interested.
charge, or do you want to have Andrew draft the charge and farm it out to us? We can all review it. before the 2 weeks, so it'd be nice
Do
to
you
have that done.
think you could do that, or?
Yeah, just,
Or is it
if you
a
want,
lot
you can
right
do
now?
it, do an approval on, before the DPW meeting.
If it was ready, well, a review of it anyways.
Yeah, do you think you could do that in a week, or is that,
Just do the charge.
Just the charge.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
okay.
And then if we have any changes to make, we can make that at the DPW meeting and agree on those changes and have it finished for our next meeting. And then we're bringing a charge forward in advance, which I understand Dennis is concerned with appointing a committee without the charge. And if we're gonna make them special municipal employees, we can do it all at the same time and not have any lapse or any change in status. It prevents any, if you are concerned about conflicts, if they're there for 2 weeks and then we change the status, they'd be in conflict for 2 weeks if there was one, so we'll just wait and do it all at the same time. I think we're ready for that.
Sam, you had something?
Tell me, is there any reason why we can't just approve everyone who is on the list and invite them all, and then you come up with the charge, and some of those folks who are on the list may say, I don't wanna work in an organization that has that charge, I'm gonna decline, but at least we'd be saving some time.
That's what we just said.
Well, no, what, the truth is, until we have the written charge, no matter what it is, even though we've appointed them, they really can't work on it.
They have no power until they have the charge.
So
They
we'd
don't-
rather
they
just,
don't have
we'll
to-
time it all out, so in 2 weeks they
They
got
don't
it,
have
they can
to-
go with it.
They don't have to have power.
Right.
They just have to know that they're accepted as a
Right.
group of citizens who think they wanna put their 2 cents in, and let them think about it, and then when the
I
time.
think Greg is right.
I've
Based
heard
on
we-
Dennis's comments, I think he's right. Let's just, we got it started. 2 more weeks, we'll have everything in place and we can just go with it. That way, again, right or wrong, it doesn't matter. The point is,
How many people have you asked?
We're
to be
paying it
on
to-
this committee?
None.
well, no, technically, I think we asked 4 because someone recommended putting them on
Well,
it.
we asked if they'd like to be on
But
it.
4
We
others
asked.
came in
Oh.
outside of that, so we
is
got
anything
8.
wrong- Anything wrong with having 8? Or 10?
It varies. I can't tell you that because sometimes there is something wrong with that.
Oh, okay, I don't know.
Because you do get to a certain level where you got a quorum, and if you can't get 4 people to show up, then
I don't know the rules.
you're spinning circles.
But I figured there's no reason why everybody can't put their 2 cents in to
Well, if you have too
resolve the
many-
problem.
If you have
Okay.
too many, it's a problem.
Have 5 and 3 alternates. You should always have an odd number
I would rather 7.
for voting.
I agree with that too. So that's why I was curious, 7 or 5, but I hear you, 5 with 3 alternates isn't a bad thing, because if they're all interested, their comments should be accepted, you know? Just like what you guys are saying, we should be sitting here listening to you and making sure somehow it's incorporated or at least noted that that was the opinion you had. Yes, Dennis?
This is just a suggestion. Of course, I would rather say it when you have your committee appointed. In the spirit of cooperation, it would behoove all of us to have joint meetings at some point when they're close to whatever it is they are looking to do, instead of them presenting something to us and then presenting something to you. If we all got in the same room at the same time and handed things out, it might expedite things and get it done a lot quicker.
I agree, and I think we should probably look at the month of March to see if we can get 1 or 2 of those lined up. If you're also, I was just, for us, we were talking about the first meeting of the Board of Selectmen in March, which would be March 4th.
That's only 4 weeks. That's too early.
And we usually
No,
do it
that's just the
Tuesday.
first month, and then the second month, they're still working on it, but they're just doing the updates as we go. So it'd be a 2-month, because once April hits, we need 2 months. Or they need 2 months. I mean, you don't wanna ask them to take input and make a decision in 2 weeks. You know, it's not easy, we've all tried.
Oh, I know.
You know, so I don't wanna, I would rather get what we can get from them by the end of March, so that April and May are both the planning board and the Board of Selectmen's time to take that info and create a final draft that we're gonna put in front of the town.
I just have one other comment, and this is my talking, not being on the board. Democracy is a great thing. Everybody's had the opportunity to come to our meetings, and some have, some haven't. Same thing with voting. It's sad to see that a very small percent of people in Barre come out to vote, and usually it's when there's something vested they're interested in. And then when that article is done, a lot of them get up and walk away, because they don't care about the other stuff, or they don't have time. I don't wanna belittle anything, but my point is people showed up that had an interest. Whether I agree with it, or you agree with it, they showed up. They exercised their right. We're now at a point where you have like the A team and the B team, and now we gotta come together and have the ABC team, so that everybody gets a voice in all of this, and then come up with, because if people weren't happy with what we presented, and they weren't happy with what the BOS presented, it doesn't matter if those opinions weren't brought beforehand to us. If they were, maybe I missed something, but now that that's all been done, this is where we're at, you know. And I know our board will work with, you know, and have worked with the Board of Selectmen and other committees in the past, so just in the spirit of cooperation, you know, we're pretty open-minded.
Okay.
We only do what we, it's not like, I can't speak for the other members, I can speak for myself. I don't keep my opinion about something like, that's it, and I don't listen to anything else. I listen to this side, that side, and kind of try to go to the middle. And if this side weighs more than that side, well, that's the side they kind of lean towards. If you're hearing more negative than positive, then the negative wins over the positive. But if they're equal, then you're in the middle of the road where you should be.
Yeah.
Just my 2 cents.
I got you. No matter who elected you, now you represent the town. So
Exactly.
each item, you've got to listen to what the town's saying.
I have my personal
And I got
opinion,
you.
but I don't hold that to how I make my decision.
Yeah. And I understand that. And I agree with that, so I
I
appreciate it.
think you guys do the same thing.
So with that said, then I guess what we'll do is table this to the next meeting in the process, get the draft going. Thank you very much for the two of you coming. Are we gonna ask them to come to the next one?
If you want.
I would like to see the people that would like to be in the committee.
I'm gonna ask
We could do that early on.
everyone that's on the list to come, so they can at least address them, once you've already asked.
Okay.
And if we address it early on.
Would you be able to come back again in a couple weeks? Thank you. Are you also available to come back in a couple weeks, Ralph?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for coming this time, though. I appreciate it.
Bring the 4 kids, it's a good public experience for them.
Yeah, you don't want
I seen them.
Depends on how quick we want the meeting to end.
Could
No,
move it
no,
right
that-
along.
It still wouldn't be better. The meeting wouldn't end. Did you just say feral?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I wanted to make sure I heard it right. It's all right. We got an animal control officer somewhere. Okay. So we have that. Alrighty. Board of Selectmen Rules of Procedure. Brought up by one of the members to see if we can create more of a standard policy about meetings more specifically. Andrew created a draft. And I know this was one of the things you were more speaking of, so I'll let you kind of.
Right,
Go
without
with
going
the
through the
draft.
whole draft, the general concern is when we do public input, which we've done several times tonight, we tend to stray from things that, not so much tonight, but other times we stray from our agenda items, and we take public input when something is not listed to be discussed. And I think we should keep that time brief. We should literally set a timer for 1 or 2 minutes on an input discussion that's not on this agenda. And when something is on the agenda, the same thing, perhaps a 2 or 3 minute time limit for discussion. There's, to allow people to go on a topic for 15 or 20 minutes, or as in last time, nearly 35 minutes on a topic that wasn't on the agenda, I think, is inappropriate in pushing our luck as far as open meeting laws and publicizing. So I'd like to come up with some sort of parameters for ourselves I agree with public comments and letting it in. There have been past boards that have said, we don't have to listen to you and we won't, and I think that's wrong. I want to hear what everybody has to say, and I want people to have the opportunity to speak. But there has to be an end to it. There has to be a time limit. A lot of these meetings run till 10:30 at night sometimes, and they shouldn't. Quite frankly, no one has time for that, not to sit here and not for us to sit here. If we can stay on topic and streamline discussions, you know, I think it'd be wise. And including our talking on things, keeping our responses more concise and explanations more concise.
Have we had a chance to really go through this, or do we wanna go
No,
through it
I'd
a little
rather-
bit more and then present any comments to Andrew?
I'd like to go through it some, and we can talk about it if we have any comments on it now, but yeah, I would like to, maybe the same thing, if we have comments to make a change to suggestions, we try to do it before the, even before next meeting. I mean, this isn't something we have to do now, this isn't an
Alright,
urgent issue.
So we'll
But
work through it and try to
we
get
can work
anything
at
to
it,
you in a couple weeks and
Put it
we'll go
back,
from there.
put it back in the next meeting agenda and talk about it more on the agenda, but we should discuss it while we have it on the topic. And talk about some times now, what do you think is a proper discussion time? And, you know, the meat of this, you know, we'll look at on our own, but my main concern would be to talk about time limits and how we're gonna address it.
Okay.
And then, yeah, we go through this and bring it up in 2 weeks and make our adjustments then and vote on it in the 1st of February. First meeting in February. Perfect.
And when we're done, we'll give it to
Council.
Quabbin High School and say, put this into your civics training. So when you guys graduate and you wanna come to town to figure out why we're telling you what you can and can't do, you now know how to ask. Anyway, I'm just suggesting, it might not hurt. All right, so yes, let's do that, get some comments in for next week, or the week after, and then we'll continue to discuss.
Well, do you want to discuss the possibility of time limits on public comment on topics that are not on the agenda? And I think there's things like that we could discuss tonight. If we don't start talking about it, we can't. We can't go, you know, we can throw our ideas in later or separately, but
I would like
I
to,
asked to have it here so we can talk about this publicly, openly.
right, and I
have
still
some
want the
discussion
same
on-
type of discussions at the next meeting.
Absolutely, but I'd like to
Um,
start that now with, you know, if something's not on our agenda, it's not listed publicly, nobody knows where to talk about it. So if somebody wants to bring a topic up to our attention, that's fantastic. But we have no right to sit here and spend a half an hour on a topic as we did last week that no one else gets to come and have input on. So I think we really need to talk about a time limit on issues that are not on the agenda. That should be a chance for somebody to make a comment about, you know, something we've done in the past or something on the agenda for the evening maybe. But to bring up a new topic, it should just be a chance to make note of something or bring something to our attention, and that should take but less than a minute to do. And I think that would be a reasonable time limit to say somebody has 1 minute to bring a public comment to us that's not on our agenda.
Are you speaking about the Seven Hills discussion last week?
There's a couple of things we did last week, but yes, we can't,
Oh, no, just asking.
but you can't start any topic and get too far into it, because it's unfair to someone who's
Yeah, I think that's
getting the
right.
other side, which can be taken as bashing them,
Yeah.
or speaking against them, and can cause public sentiment against them. And
I think that's absolutely.
it happens often in many
Good
different things
point.
without being
So-
specific, so I didn't want to be specific on anything, but I would rather see that if somebody wants to bring something to the attention of the board, they have 1 minute to do that, and we should limit our response to 1 minute
Yeah.
back. It should be very brief, or we're pushing the open meeting law rules.
And just to let everybody in the room and anybody listening on the camera, you don't need to use public comment to get on the agenda. You just need to email us a minimum of by Wednesday prior to a Monday meeting. So that Andrew has a chance to say, somebody requested this on the agenda, the chairman can say, yes, let's put it on the agenda. Or if we've got 30 things on the agenda that night, I go to him and say, can you ask the person if they can skip 2 weeks and we'll do it at the next meeting? So we get all of our agenda stuff, we try to post it by Thursday, because we don't work Fridays. The town offices, administrative offices aren't open on Friday. Andrew is nice enough to do things at times for us, but I don't like asking him because it's taking advantage of the fact that he's actually working off hours just because he's a salaried guy and he's a nice guy, and you don't want to do that to him. Eventually he'll burn out and run. So if you get us something by Wednesday, we're more than likely gonna have it on the agenda, and now it's not that you only got 30 seconds to tell us the topic and then we're gonna table it for the next meeting anyway. So I just want people to understand that public comment isn't your only means and methods to have discussion here at the Board of Selectmen meetings or any other public meeting. You just need to contact the town administrator or the respective chairman of any board or committee and ask to be on their agenda, and it can change the whole concept. Go ahead there, Dennis. He's like, where's my time limit?
No, I was gonna say, what's your bonus extension?
101.
101. Absolutely.
So,
You have another question back there from Mr. Andoli?
Real quick, I don't want to gloss over this. You just came up with a brilliant idea about Quabbin and civics, and I don't want to make this discussion.
Oh, gosh.
But seriously, what about like if Quabbin could have a student come sit with the Board of Selectmen every week, someone who's interested in political science, and start to understand things from your perspective? That was a really interesting idea.
I would encourage it if they're interested.
Really interesting idea.
I think I'd actually love it. You know, I don't know if they could count it, but that might even count towards some of their,
Think about how cool that would be with kids sitting there and just seeing things from the way you see them.
The scouts do that.
Scouts
They
do that.
will come to public meetings, it's toward a badge that
Yeah,
they.
it's a merit badge.
okay.
Yeah, that's a really, really great
It's
idea.
actually too bad.
So,
You
yeah.
could potentially take a
You
kid
just
and
passed
change
a
his
law,
course.
you're required to teach civics now.
Usually,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I heard it might have fallen off the curriculum there for a little
Yeah.
while, but
The legislature just passed a law making it law that they teach it.
usually the scouts go to college at Pittsburgh State on the off week of vacation and do just that. Political science badges.
oh, okay.
How easy would it be to have a Quabbin student, you know, who maybe applied and was vetted out to sit at these meetings and just right there and watch the process? Sorry, didn't mean to extend.
No, it's.
But-
Started some time.
You could take a kid's course of life if they got to see.
You
things
get a
from-
perspective from behind the table, not just in the crowd. That's one way of looking at it too, and then we can always point at them and say, see those cameras? The entire world's watching
I didn't
you.
know we're on camera.
Don't get nervous. No, I'm just,
Then tell them they can't go.
exactly.
Sorry.
In a year and a half though, you can kick me out of office, depending on their age.
So, does a minute for input on something not on the agenda sound reasonable for a comment?
For public comment, I think a minute should be good without getting so strict. Most of the times it's 2 minutes, if you're in the crowd and you just raise your hand and wanna talk about something, but
If it's a past item, I agree a little longer, but if it's a new topic, and that's why I say our response should be limited as well, because if they.
technically, I don't think we need to respond. It's not a questionnaire period, it's a public comment. It means they stand up, they make a comment, they sit down, it's done.
And our response could address that, we could save it in 30 seconds if we choose, but I'm saying that it shouldn't be a response and then a rebut and go back and forth, which has typically happened in the past, and we get way off topic into something that we shouldn't even be in the first place. That's my biggest concern, and we've wasted time on it, and we risk, reprimand for it if we keep going off on topics that aren't on our agenda.
I'm generally okay with that. I think we need to think about it though. 2 minutes might be better because some people aren't as good at collecting themselves and speaking in public, so it might take them almost 40 seconds to remind themselves on, this is my topic, and then they've got to tell you it.
2 minutes is a long time.
2 minutes is not that long when we've been here for 4 hours. You don't look at 2 minutes and say, that ruined my night.
No.
if you keep it to the 2 minutes. And I don't want to put overly restrictive 1 minute time limit, because I do believe you've got to deal with various people that are going to have their own difficulties bringing something up, and I don't want to. So that's, and I'm just saying,
Well,
this
right,
is the
and-
discussion.
and
This
if-
isn't.
And my feeling is, if it's that kind of issue, that all the more reason to call 3 days ahead of time into the town administrator's office and ask to be put on the agenda, so we can have a more in-depth and thorough discussion and make sure they're heard. If, the idea for public comment is something off the cuff, that someone said, oh, this, I thought of this yesterday, today, or whatever, and it should be something quick and concise. I think if somebody needs
get
2
you.
minutes, it's something that belongs on the agenda that they should have thought out.
I can see your point.
That's the idea of keeping the brevity to it, is it's not a posted item, it's not up for discussion. If it needs that much thought and input from them, it should be on the agenda.
I got you.
And I'm trying to be tough on it. A lot of towns, I've watched some other town meetings in bigger towns, and they literally have a timer, and they have like 1 minute and 30 seconds, and that's it. They'll, even if they're on the agenda, they have a minute on the agenda, it's a 30-second button, next item, they're done. And if people don't bring notes and be concise, we don't need to be that strict, but
Right.
there's certainly an expedient should be expected. Our time should be respected. Everyone here, their time should be respected, and not have to listen to these things going too far astray.
Okay.
So I still look for my minute.
Sounds good.
But that's something we can discuss further next time. And as far as agenda items for people in the room, I don't know if we want to set a strict time limit, but, if somebody's asked to be on the agenda, and it's not something we've placed on here, there's certainly a reasonable thing to say they could have 3 minutes to present something to us, unless if they brought it to us ahead of time and we agree to put this on the agenda, and they brought us dockets and in pamphlets to look at and graphs to put up, and we can say, okay, we'll put this in the agenda and we'll present it and have the time, is one thing. But if someone calls in to be in the agenda, I once again think 3 minutes is plenty of time to put something forward just off a phone call on the agenda. If they're asking us to block time for them, I think 3 minutes is plenty, with maybe a 2-minute return and a 1-minute follow-up on either side. And that would limit that to about 5 minutes, 5 or 6.
I think we gotta be careful with that. I hear you. Only because I don't want the rules and regs to be something that makes people feel like they didn't have enough time to say what they felt. Again, we're talking about the majority of people in public are not comfortable speaking openly in public.
Mhm.
So they're gonna start saying something, and they're gonna have a hard time making their point, and then you're gonna say, time's up, and they're gonna feel like, why did I even come tonight? And if that becomes consistent, then it's a detriment to what we're doing, not a benefit. Because we're here not just to say what we're doing, but also give them a chance to tell us what they think. And I don't want it to be so restrictive
Well,
that people feel like we're just using policy rather than personal reasons to also keep people from talking. Because it's easy to just point to the paper, when the truth is, maybe we should give them more time.
Well, the objective of this board is to conduct town business, first and foremost, and that's where we have our agenda items of setting up committees and approving licenses and use of town property, payrolls, and other things that we do that are town business, and that's what we're here for. And we do want to have public input. And I would say, once again, to give somebody 3 minutes to present something on the floor that they've just called in for is plenty of time. If they are the nervous type, or they're uncomfortable speaking in public, we have Andrew and Sandy here all week long. They can come sit with them and present their things to them and go through that and have it ready for us, so that we present it in a manner that's on our agenda and we already understand it. And then they could have input while we're on the item. It doesn't have to be something they present to us in 3 minutes unless they choose to. But if they choose to present it to us on the air, and we haven't heard it before, then I think 3 minutes is plenty.
I got you.
If they want to make it a bigger item, once again, this goes back to when I was first on, we were getting all these applications in. I'd say, this shouldn't be before us, it's not ready yet. I was tired of approving things, I had to go back and pending these other signatures. Be prepared to come before the board. It's not just our time, it's everyone that bothers to turn the TV on and listen to us, it's their time. And if someone's not prepared to be here, they don't warrant taking that much time from everybody.
I got
So
you.
if they need more time, they can present it to Andrew and to Sandy, and they can help them streamline it or help them format it for our agenda so we can discuss it. And that information can come to us to preview an email text, so we see it beforehand. So we're ready to have a better discussion on it. But if they're gonna walk in with just a phone call to say, please put me on the agenda, I think once again, 3 minutes is plenty. And then a proper, response and rebuts back and forth. But once again, this is talking about last week, I was literally watching 35 minutes on the clock as we went through some of these items. And, this is a big reeling from that. And it probably doesn't happen but 3 or 4 times a year. But it's just a matter to address it. That's reasonable, and if people understand the parameters up front in advance, I think it's reasonable. If they understand out of the blue, it's,
We can discuss more, but I get your point. I do.
If somebody wants to stand up and say, oh, I have something to say I thought of today, 1 minute's plenty. If somebody wants to make a phone call, 3 minutes is plenty of our time to hear the new idea. If it's a bigger idea or topic, then they can certainly do the responsible thing and discuss it ahead of time. That's why I talked about this.
Midge,
I was here last week. I said we had 2 commons.
you did.
This week I say we have no common. Because the first common across from the post office is sold to the Barre Housing Authority. Even though you use a Memorial Day exercises on private property and you leave the war memorial there, which I think should be put inside the park. It is a park, the other one, which we call non-A, because Mr. Tripolo, your wife,
No, my wife is not Mr. Triffle.
You sure?
her father, Catherine, would appreciate being involved in the formation and dedication of the park. Park, not a common. His wish is to dedicate the park to the immigrants that worked in the Barre Roll Calling Company. My dad worked there. This is to be kept and used as a public park in perpetuity for the public good. This was sent to Attorney Baird, and Catherine Triffill of Notary Public signed it. And Lorraine Lamarchialino, who's on the Common Committee, should know that it's called a non-A park. She signed it as such. It's not a common. I'd like to have a fence put between the non-A park and the railroad tracks. I think it's very dangerous not to have a fence between the working railroad, which has derailed twice. Is my minute up? Thank you.
Thank you.
No needed response.
Please pass on to the Southbury Common Committee that a request was made to review the potential of putting a fence between the railroad and Nornay Park. We have a request to use town property. Request to use Town Hall for a wedding on April 16th, 2019.
Any conflicts on that date? Then I would make a motion to grant Linda Freeman use of the town hall.
The date should be 6.
You are correct, April
April
6th. I'm
6th,
sorry.
2019,
The L and the
2 p.m.
6 were close enough, and I just kind of went, eh.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks for correcting me, though.
That's all right, I just wanted to make sure I was at the right place at the right time.
And congratulations if it's you or family.
No, family member, thank you.
So a motion for Linda Freeman to use the town hall April 6th, 2019 at 2 p.m. for a wedding. No alcohol, light refreshments.
No second.
Call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Done, look at that. Another one.
That didn't take no year and a half notice. Save the date. No, I'm just joking. I can only say that because I've been engaged for more than a year already. With no date saved.
She's engaged for 12, that's nothing.
Well, we were together for 12 before I asked. So I figure if I go another 12 before we get married, then I'm halfway to dead.
You want a shovel or keep digging?
They ruined a good thing.
Don't forget,
Probably.
you're on television.
Oh, yes. I knew that. I'm terribly, like, and it has nothing to do with her, it's me, so.
If only being on
I'm the
television
fool.
changes behavior, but it doesn't.
Keep
This
digging.
phone's gonna stop.
Oh, it won't matter. She told me something about there was another podcast she wanted to watch, so maybe she's not watching tonight.
Yeah, right.
Exactly, yeah, right. She's probably texting you right now.
Probably doubt it.
Oh, and another special event permit, I'm sorry. Actually, it's not the same as use of town property. Special event permit from the Barre Library Association for their annual road race, Saturday, June 15th at 7 a.m. This is the up Pleasant, around, and back down Broad.
This is already vetted through the departments, or no?
It has been, it was sent out earlier, I haven't gotten, I think the DPW is the one I haven't gotten a sign off on on our internal,
Well, the
I
sheet,
can- yeah.
But there shouldn't be any concerns with
There
DPW
shouldn't
for that, so that won't.
Those
hold
are,
it up.
those should be, that should just list the departments that were sent out for
Right.
approval. I think that's the only one that hasn't responded.
Probably the only thing left to fine tune our little permit application would be, instead of just listing them all,
Mhm.
list the ones that are gonna be relevant
Right.
to, because some of them won't be relevant.
Yeah, and I think
you know.
what it does is, you know, one of the questions it asks is whether or not it's going to impact the roadway, and if it does, then it goes to the DPW for their notice and
Right.
approval, so, I mean, we can
like
change
our
that.
refreshments
Yeah.
served.
Yeah, I think.
Board of Health
Mhm.
falls into place
Yeah.
sometimes on that, even though it may
Right, but I'm
not
just
hit
saying-
you on a road race.
Just saying, we can just make sure we streamline too, but
Okay.
that's much better than the
Yeah.
previous. Anyways, I recommend we approve the Barre Library Association's road race on Saturday, June 15th at 7 a.m.
Second.
Call for vote?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Let's see, I think I'm getting close. We're getting close.
Yep.
All right, we have here an application for request to be appointed on the zoning board of appeals. Dennis Fleming had made this application. Is the board short? Is it full? Do we
I
know?
believe at this time, the board is full with one alternate, but allows for up to 3 alternates.
Okay. The 3 alternates. And Dennis, right now, are you currently on planning board, conservation, and parks and recs? Okay.
And constable.
So is
And
it going to be
constable.
either a member or an alternate? You said we have an alternate position available,
We have 2 alternate positions available.
but no member position available.
Correct.
Okay, this is another one where it's that fine line of how many municipal positions you can have without them being special municipal employees, based on definition, if I'm correct. So I'd like to,
Warren's looking into.
because it's more important on boards that may have overlapping. And I know the zoning board of appeals and the planning board aren't necessarily overlapping, except that the planning board member can be part of the drafting of the zoning bylaw, that then becomes, someone takes before the zoning board of appeals, asks for that variance or whatever. I don't know how legally that's interpreted, so I would suggest that we get some, even if it's Jim, just to look at
Okay.
his current boards and what he's asking for, to see if there's any special criteria that should be put in place, just to make sure that we don't appoint someone and find out that we shouldn't have, because of some law that we just didn't think made sense, but someone wrote it, so you're stuck with it. But that would be my only, again, I had to go through that conflict of interest training, and
It doesn't make any sense when you go through it. It's a frustrating thing.
it's not intuitive. There are things where you think, yeah, you would want to do a disclosure for that, and they're like, no, you don't need it. And then it'd be like, no, you can't do it. Yeah, you can if you go through this exemption, that disclosure, and you get that board's approval. And so, when I started reading about special municipal employees and not having more than one position with a municipality, or not having more than one paid position, or a variety of those options, I said, all right, this is getting deeper than I feel comfortable that I can, so I would ask that we follow up with Jim. Unless Dupre is more appropriate because it's somewhat personnel, because it's positions
I
and.
can just ask them both.
Okay.
One administrator.
Just dawned on me, I didn't know which one we would ask.
And none of mine are paid. None of the positions I hold are paid.
Okay, even the constable?
Well, that's separate, that's private. If I'm hired on privately, the town maybe once a year, twice a year will.
Oh, I got you.
One of the three to post a warrant.
All right, I
That's
got
about
you.
it. Doesn't even cover your bond.
But you're elected as a constable, right?
Hmm?
That counts then as a municipal employee, so every dollar you make on that, I believe, counts as paid. So just be careful you don't get trapped by the accident, well, I got paid here, but my stipend was more there, and, cause you can only take one income. Take your highest, from a municipality anyway. Call firefighters are special municipal, so they don't get in trouble for getting paid for the fire service as well as if they work at DPW.
Except for selectmen, you have to invoke the selectmen clause and choose one of the incomes.
Yes, that is true.
And I chose the low paying one. All right,
So you do fire work for free?
Don't do much of it because.
Because we didn't budget anything for selectmen, so you're saying the low paying one, I'm guessing you put fires out for free.
I would say, since I'm doing this, we miss most of our training and stuff that I normally do. So when you miss the training, you miss a lot of the earned income, and then you miss a lot of calls because of the lack of training, so
I wasn't even sure, so I didn't take a dime for being selectman from the beginning, because I didn't know if the law does not say the same municipality, but recently they started incorporating it into their video. But the law just says a municipal employee can't have more than 2 paid jobs. Well, I work for the city of Worcester. So I'm like, I don't want anything, I don't want to get in trouble.
worth risking.
And I'm not paying an attorney the amount of money you'd pay me to be a Board of Selectmen member to find out if I can or can't. So I was like,
The attorney does it in 3 hours.
the
yeah.
risk just isn't worth it.
All right, so we want to table Dennis's application till the next meeting?
Yeah.
Have these answers?
If you don't mind. And then, did you have something, Sam?
The other question, is it smart for town directors, you three, to, and I know that these positions are hard to fill, but to allow one person to be in so many boards, even though the boards are hard to fill, but I think the focus, if they're in too many places, may not be very democratic. That's all my thought would
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said there's not a lot of competition for the position. So far, every board we've put Dennis on, he did not have somebody else sitting at the table with an application saying, I would like it as well. And I don't mean that negatively, like we wouldn't choose him, but you're right. Had I had more applicants, I would look at it and say, okay, he's on 3, I'm not gonna consider him for zoning board of appeals. But it's not like we have a long waiting list of zoning board of appeals applicants. I mean, so that's where I look at it, and I hear what you're
be. I'm
saying.
not specifically saying zoning board of appeals, it's just, you know, we have a small town, so
I was just bringing up this example.
if one person is 7 or 8 boards, it's wonderful, they can be really helpful, but their prejudices are focused on all those boards, and it's kind of hard to separate some of the positions if they have so many directors, being the chairman of these different boards, it's kind of hard, it's hard to be democratic, it's difficult.
I don't disagree.
And
That's
the-
also why we asked the lawyer for his input on how many positions he
And
could
sometimes
hold.
Let's
people
take
ask
that in
me,
consideration. It's
why don't I become
agenda
a
item.
board?
Oh,
And
well, this is an
I'd
agenda.
like to, but I can't,
This topic is not,
because of
is
my
appointment
private
wise, but not
involvement,
It's the same
I can't
topic.
devote the time, to be very honest.
multiple appointments.
His application said he's on 3 boards. All the public documentation, it's part of this agenda. I don't know how you could say this was off topic.
Because this was just an application to appoint. Discussion on policy on appointments in general. It's moving away from appointing someone to someone doesn't open up policy on topics for appointments.
That's all our agenda items. Is there any further public comment or additional comments or thoughts anybody would have for the evening?
I have one thing.
Yes, Charlie.
And it concerns me personally in this board. I have been going back and forth in my mind for the last couple of months about whether I would be running again, and I wanted to make the announcement tonight because it takes a lot of time to prepare to run. But I will not be seeking re-election. It's not because I'm unhappy with the board or the town or anything. I've enjoyed being selectman very, very much. And I've served in total 18 years, and I've served 9 years on the school committee, a total of 27 years. And when I came on, we had a certain set of problems that we had to deal with. And we've kind of dealt with a lot of those problems at this point, but I have decided to go back to being a private citizen. And it was not an easy decision, because I really like being selectman for the town of Barre. And the Barre voters have always been very good to me. And they've afforded me opportunities that I never dreamt I would have, really, when you come right down to it. I've done things in government that I just never anticipated in my wildest dreams when I started out. So, but after a lot of thought and a lot of consultation with my family and so on, I just decided that I would not be seeking re-election. And I'm doing it right now, making the announcement so that people who might be thinking of it can plan. I know the papers come out fairly soon, actually, I think. So
Yeah, I think they're in
that is my
February
decision.
sometime.
So that's all I wanted to say.
Well, I just wanted to say, since I've been on the board, you've been here, and the mentoring, kind of showing the ropes, explaining how Board of Selectmen's work, it's been really appreciated, Charlie. You've always been willing to
Well, we
help,
still got a
just say,
few
hey,
more
this is
ones,
what,
so-
this is how it works. That's made a difference for me. It made it much easier coming into work, knowing that I had you there. Even when you offered to let me be chairman, it was a learning experience, and you were always there in case I'm kind of screwing up. You're like, you can't do that, Matt. It's not our job. So I really appreciate it.
Yep.
And
Well, I've enjoyed working with both you gentlemen and Andrew, Sandy. We had some interesting times at the start. One meeting in particular, your first.
yes, that was an indoctrination right there. Of,
Yeah, that was an interesting meeting, but it's behind us, so we move on. But I
Yes.
just wanted to make that announcement tonight, so people can, if they're running, want to think about running, they can run and plan way ahead, get ready.
I too, Charlie, want to say that, the three of us, I think, have done a lot in the last, couple of years here. We came in some really rocky start with everything going on, a lot of things in town. I think a lot of changes have happened in town,
Yeah.
things we've gotten through. I agree, we've gotten a lot of things done that I think we all were hoping to see changes make, and
Right.
we did that together.
Right.
And we certainly have had our disagreements at times over things, but I've said publicly many times that I think
Yeah.
this board, everybody here has the best interest of this town at heart, and that's what's most important.
Mhm.
And it's important that we do disagree on things, because if we all have a like mind, we wouldn't be giving the town what they deserve. We need our differing opinions, and that we all bring different opinions here. And
Yeah.
certainly your experience has been very, very helpful to all of us. Coming into, when we talk about state grants and state operations and how that affects the town, your insight to that's been very helpful to me in learning about the chapter funds and things like that, and how we deal with the school.
Well, thank you.
And I do
Thank
appreciate what you've done.
Thank you. With that said, I have nothing else.
all right. Well, thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Yeah.
Charlie.
Thank you. not over yet. So you
No,
come
that's
in-
just
but-
the
come in
beginning.
that next meeting.
You know,
Different
Charlie,
than-
every meeting now through April will end with a big clap for Charlie.
I
I'm
don't
gonna
know
make
about
sure
that.
at the end of every meeting, it's
I
like,
don't know
all right,
about
everybody thank Charlie. He'll just stop, he'll just stop showing up like second week of January. He's like, you know, never mind, I'm done.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
We going over administrative report or no?
Do you have an administrative
Um,
report you'd like to speak to?
The only thing I just wanted to update you guys on, since our last meeting, we had that fire over in Town Hall. Thanks to the fire department for really acting quick on that.
Signatures, right? So it's just another.
I want to let you guys know that we hit, right afterward, I contacted insurance and our vendor for maintenance. Right now, they are in the process of replacing, it basically was one of the 3 boilers downstairs that had caught fire. It's both a boiler and AC unit. Our insurance carrier was very quick to basically make the determination, yep, that thing is toast, do what you have to do to replace it. So less our deductible of $2,500, they're covering the full cost. Full cost of replacement is about is almost $14,000. So
Okay.
insurance is covered. It's good thing that we have it in this
Yes.
instance. So our McDonald's ordered the parts for replacement, and as soon as they come in, they should be getting that up and running. But thankfully, the only thing affected is the basement, and that heating unit only heats and cools the basement area. So
Okay. And that's not getting so cold right now because
No.
one, it's surrounded by
Right.
dirt on 3 sides in a
Right.
way.
And the residual heat is making its way down.
I'm sure just, the furnace is running in the basement, kick off enough heat to keep it above freezing.
Was it determined what malfunctioned on that?
So there was a crack in the heat in the basically the firebox.
Heat exchange.
So what we're assuming is that the fire escaped from that crack and then got into the unit itself.
Like hit the insulation, kind of like lit the insulation outside the firebox and
Yeah, it's
ran through the equipment.
Right. That's what we're kind of determining might have been the initial cause.
Is that oil or propane?
That's oil.
Okay. All right then. Whoa,
Motion to adjourn.
I second that. Call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye. Everybody go home.